The biggest snowstorm to hit the Northeast this winter will start to ramp up today and provide a widespread threat for heavy snow and potentially damaging winds over the next couple of days. Stay tuned in to see more of the details on when and where you can expect the worst of the storm. Good Monday morning, everybody. I'm Matthew Potter, your community weatherman. As I said, we have a snowstorm coming for the Northeast U.S., and we're going to get into those details as to exactly where and when you can expect the worst of the impacts. So getting into the water vapor loop here, you see that we have a big upper level low right here that's going to set the stage for this coastal low that develops, and this is going to phase with this piece of energy down here in the southeast U.S. Now, looking at the most recent surface analysis at 8 a.m., you see that there's a low pressure here of 1004 millibars off the coast of North Carolina, and this is what's going to eventually develop into that strong nor'easter on Tuesday. Now, looking at the current radar across the northeast U.S., you see there is precipitation already starting to break out ahead of that coastal system. Now, most of this is in the form of rain, although some of the higher elevations are reporting snow, and there is actually a mix already starting here in the Albany area, but much of this is actually going to trend toward rain throughout the day. A lot of this right here in southern New England is actually not reaching the ground, so right now, at the moment, you're not seeing any precipitation. Now, looking at the most current watches, warnings, and advisories that have been issued by the National Weather Service as of this morning, you see that there is an extensive area of winter storm warnings throughout the Northeast. And a lot of this is encompassing the areas that are expecting to see the highest amounts of snow. And a lot of this is due to the fact that they have elevation to them. You see down in like the Connecticut River Valley, we're not upgraded to a warning just yet. And that's because there is some uncertainty in exactly how much snow you're going to get. And that includes parts of southern Connecticut, also into southeast Massachusetts, including the city of Boston. Whereas you see down here in New York, Philadelphia, there are no watches and warnings or advisories, and this is because we're not really expecting any type of impactful snow accumulations. Now we're going to take a look at what's going on in the mid-levels currently, and you see we have that big upper level low that you saw in the water vapor imagery that's currently positioned over the Great Lakes. And then we have this disturbance here in the southeast U.S. that's sparking off that low pressure system off the coast of the Carolinas. Now, it's going to be very important to see how these things phase later into the day tomorrow. And initially, when we see the heavy precipitation in the northeast U.S. later tonight, it's actually going to be created by this piece of energy right here that's rounding the base of the trough. And you see as we progress here into the nighttime, you see that piece of vorticity that starts to round the base of the trough. And that's where we will initially see the heavy precipitation being sparked off in parts of the region. And then you see here we have that disturbance that was across the southeast U.S. that's going to start to make its way off toward the northeast up the coast. Now, as we head toward further into the day on Tuesday, you see eventually these all start to phase together. And this is where we're going to start to see that coastal low strengthen rapidly off the coast of New England. Now I'm going to show you a model depiction of what the weather will be like at the surface over the next few days. And this is specifically from the 3-kilometer NAM, which just came out. And this won't necessarily be 100% correct, but this will give you a general idea of how this system will progress. Now, starting at 10 a.m., you see that most areas are starting off as snow or snow mix in the lower elevations. Now, as you get higher in elevation, this is where it's going to be mainly snow. And this will be the case as we head into the afternoon. And by late afternoon, you see that precipitation will start to get a little steadier here in New Jersey into New York and Connecticut. Now over here in Pennsylvania at this point, we're looking more and more likely that a lot of the steadiest rain is going to be to the east of you. And because of this, there won't be as much mixing with snow, especially at the higher elevations in northeast PA. So this will be pretty detrimental to your snowfall totals up in the Poconos. Now, as we see here, there's also a low pressure system that's going to try to develop off the New Jersey coastline as well. And this is associated with an inverted trough here that's going to focus heavy snow going into tonight in the highest elevations. But eventually, as we head into the overnight hours, it's going to start to get steadier, and that snow line is going to start to crash a little bit, especially here in eastern New York, especially around that Albany area. Now, as we head into the morning on Tuesday, by this point, a lot of areas are going to be switching over to snow in central Massachusetts, but areas maybe in Connecticut and also in the Connecticut River Valley might still be mixing with snow at this point. once again, something like this is going to cause an impact on your snowfall totals. Once again, as you see here, a lot of Northeast PA and New Jersey's not really seeing any kind of really heavy snow. So once again, you might be seeing some lesser totals. Now, as we continue on into the day, by 2 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon, the low pressure system that was over the Carolinas is going to be somewhere off the New England coast here, and we're going to start to see perhaps that rain snow line progress even further off toward the south and east as the cold air starts to collapse toward the center of the low pressure system. Now, you see here, Boston by this time at 2 p.m. might be starting to see that transition over to heavy snow. And not just that, our winds are going to start to pick up around this low pressure system. And with this, we might be seeing some pretty low visibilities. I don't want to say the B word, but I'm going to say it anyway. There could be some blizzard-like conditions for some parts of Massachusetts with this system. Now, over here into New Jersey and Pennsylvania, southeast New York, at this point, we might not be seeing some really heavy snow. It might be more of a snow showery type effect going on, whereas over here in Massachusetts, this is where we're probably going to see the focus of the heavy snow at this point in the system. Now, as we continue on into the evening on Tuesday, by this point, that rain snow line is probably going to collapse all the way over into Cape Cod. So much of New England at this point is going to be seeing snow. Where the heaviest snow is going to be is kind of a question mark, but the main thing to know is that in lower elevations, your temperatures aren't necessarily going to be that cold, so we're not going to necessarily be sticking as easily unless if you're going to be under any heavy snow bands. Whereas the higher in elevation you go, this is where you're going to see some higher accumulations of snow, especially as you get into western Massachusetts, into the Green Mountains of Vermont, and also into the higher hills of northwest Connecticut. And as you see, as we continue on into the day, into the overnight hours on Tuesday, this low pressure system will start to occlude, and the steadier snow bands will start to decrease in intensity. And this will be the case as we get into the morning hours on Wednesday. And by this point, you're seeing mainly just some lingering light snow across parts of New England. Currently, as of now, winds really aren't that bad, but as we go into the evening hours, you'll notice that the winds will start to ramp up, especially across Long Island and into portions of coastal Connecticut, where wind gusts could be upwards of 40, 45 miles an hour. Now, as we continue on into the morning on Tuesday, those winds will start to shift mostly over into southeast New England. And then eventually, as we go into the afternoon, as that low pressure system really starts to ramp up, you notice that we have really strong winds that are going to be coming off the ocean, upwards of 60 miles per hour along the coastal regions of Massachusetts. And this will continue to be an issue as we head into the evening hours, as you continue to have that northeasterly wind coming off the ocean. And we'll continue to see those gusty winds all the way into Wednesday. And not just that, there is also going to be fairly significant winds over the interior regions of the Northeast. And there probably will be some power outages as a result of that wet, heavy, dense snow on power lines and trees. Now we're going to look at what the National Weather Service has for their updated snowfall totals across the Northeast. And you notice there's going to be a pretty wide area that's going to see at least a foot of snow, especially in here in the central hills of Massachusetts, into the Berkshires, the Green Mountains in southern Vermont, also into the Catskills, maybe even into the lower elevations too, into like Albany. Now, you'll notice that the snowfall totals really start to drop down as you get into the lower elevations, especially here into the Connecticut River Valley, where we're only expecting maybe 3 to 4 or 5 inches of snowfall. And then down here into coastal Connecticut, into southeast Massachusetts, once again, the totals are really not necessarily going to be winter storm warning worthy. Now, here you see the National Weather Service is clearly going for some pretty high totals in northeast Pennsylvania. But as I alluded to, if that heavy snow does not get into your region tonight, more than likely these snowfall totals are going to be coming down for your area. So instead of seeing a foot, maybe even 2 feet of snow like this is depicting, most areas in the Poconos, at worst in the highest elevations, might only get about a foot, whereas the lower elevations might only be seeing maybe 3 to 6 inches. Now, down here into southeast Pennsylvania, a lot of this accumulation is basically due to the snow showers that are going to be occurring on the backside of the system on Tuesday. This will probably not be impacting any of the roadways, as much of this is going to be light and much of it's going to be occurring during the daytime. And with that sun angle during March, it's not going to be very likely that anything occurs on pavements. Now, for some of the highest snowfall totals, more than likely it's going to be over the Catskills or the Berkshires or the southern Green Mountains in Vermont. This is where we could see upwards of 2 to 3 feet of snow. Now, in terms of the totality of the storm impacts with this system, we are going to be dealing with extreme impacts, according to the Weather Prediction Center, in parts of the Catskills and the Berkshires and also north central Massachusetts. And this is where we're going to be seeing the combination of the heavy wet snow and also the strong winds, which could create extensive power outages. Now, these won't be the only areas. Lower elevations surrounding these regions could also see some major impacts as well. Now, as I alluded to, there's still room for changes in this forecast, so please refer to your local TV meteorologist or local National Weather Service forecast office for any further updates to your local weather. Thank you very much for joining me, everybody. Take care, stay safe out there, and I'll be sure to see you soon.